Hey there, welcome back. Okay, so I had someone asking questions about the Hugelkultur beds, and right behind me. But this is the whole premise behind it. You have a tree and it'll drop a limb, and that limb just becomes spongy. I'm sure you've seen this if you come out for a walk in the woods. Oh, there's a container. And it just becomes, it falls to the forest floor. All of the microbiology, all the microbes go to work on it. But then it just starts to decompose in place. And it just becomes kind of spongy. And that's the whole premise behind Hugelkultur. That's all it is that wood gets all these little holes in it. I'm walking and trying not to fall at the same time. But it just gets all these little holes in it, and it just becomes a sponge because all of that biology does its job. It starts that decomposition, the composting, same thing. And then it holds all this moisture. It just becomes spongy. This is the one that I call Hugelkultur 1, and then I have another one over there I'm going to show you. That's one we call Hugelkultur 2. Or I call them Hugel 1, Hugel 2. That's what I call them. In my mind, all of my beds have names so that I can kind of keep them straight. Okay, I've been trying to do this and it's been really windy, so it's kind of chill right now. But someone was asking about how we did our Hugelkultur bed. Okay, so this is one of our Hugelkultur beds, and we have all these woods in the back of the property, and we were tearing down a lot of trees. My husband wanted to burn it all, and what I want to do is, if you'll dig me a pit. So he dug down with some heavy equipment. It was some big equipment. He dug down about 6 feet. Hi, kitty. And we put as many logs and branches and limbs and twigs and everything in there as we could. And then we used a lot of the soil. First of all, we used the soil that we dug out of the hole. And I said, I want to make that as thick as I possibly can. And then we used some of the soil from back there because it was good. There was good biology in the soil. I have a microscope and I looked at it. But on hindsight, I kind of wish we hadn't have done that because I have found some honey locusts and some green briars in there, and I've been pulling them out as I see them. But this bed has fallen. It used to be about 2 or 3 feet higher than it is right now, so it's fallen a lot. But I think that the reason that they wanted me to do the video on this is because I was saying I did not water this not one time last year, with one exception. I put some seeds in and I watered those seeds in, and that was the only time I watered it last year. And I had all kinds of stuff growing in there. There's some California poppies from last year. I had sunflowers growing in there, beans, cucumbers. This, of course, is rosemary. These are just kind of self-established. This is salvia. I do edible landscaping, so I do companion planting and I mix everything up. But yeah, the other thing about this is the fire ants love to go where there's, they love this Hugelkultur bed. So I'm not sure that I will do another Hugelkultur bed, but I'm glad I have this one, if that makes any sense whatsoever. The high point on our property is over there, and everything kind of runs either that way or it runs this way, because I did a site analysis when we first moved here. And so my whole thinking was it was going to come in here, it was going to act kind of like a swell, and it was going to sink in to the pit underneath. So in my mind, and I have nothing to substantiate this, this is just kind of like in the back of my mind, but in my mind it's almost kind of like what do they call those, a self-watering container, because it's coming down here, it's sinking into a very fresh 6-foot open hole, but there's enough room between the plant's roots, certainly, without question, and then there's all that wood, and then there's all that soil on top. So there's really, I mean, there's the moisture holding capacity is just amazing. So yeah, okay, so on this bed you can see from the soil right here, this is very clayey, very clayey. this one's very flat, but what we did here is we dug a big hole. Let me zoom back out a little bit. So we just dug a big pit right here, and we buried the wood just like we did over on, I called that one Hugel 1, this one's Hugel 2. And we just put all of this clayey type soil right back on the top. And then I did put a layer of compost there. I grew a lot of corn there last year, sunflowers, squash, all that kind of stuff. Here I did tomatoes on this tomato trellis, and I even did cucumbers on this tomato trellis. That got along just fine. And then last year, after everything was kind of done, I put on a really thick layer of mulch like I do on a brand new bed that I don't treat as a hugelkultur bed. I just put a foot thick of mulch right on top of the soil. And I did do a YouTube video on that, on how I start a brand new bed, but that's what I did here. So it had, let me just go back over that. So big pit, 6 foot deep at least. Filled that up with wood, branches, twigs, whatever, a lot of that kind of stuff. And then we covered it up back with the soil that was there, very, very clayey. And then we layer of compost. I didn't till anything. And then I put a layer of foot thick of wood chips. And then you can see what happened here. There was a lot of weeds, which I expected. Fully expected, and you can see where I've been kind of pulling them out. Again, the fire ants love this hugelkultur bed, and I work around the fire ants. I consider them to be unwelcome guests. They're kind of squatters. Sometimes I do evict them. I don't spray anything. If it's around the fire circle, I will use diatomaceous earth or something, but I don't put any, and not even organic, any kind of pesticides, because an organic pesticide is still a pesticide. It's killing the ladybugs. When I've been kind of digging in there, I've been seeing a lot of spiders and centipedes and all kinds of really good signs of life in there. Now, the reason that I expected to see these weeds coming up in this bed is because I knew this was a very high bacterial material that I was putting in here. Now, the wood chips will help with the fungi, but the compost that I put on, I know I didn't have enough whenever I first started this bed. I didn't have enough of my own compost, so I did go buy a truckload of it, and I put that down, and I looked at it under the microscope, and it was just all bacteria. There was no diversity of life, so I expected these pioneering species to come up. Let me just turn that back around. Here's one. So some of I'm not letting them go to seed. I'm going to make sure that these are out of here before they go to seed, because I don't want to have too many. But this whole bed was just covered with all of this wild lettuce. And I know that's useful, medicinal and all that, but I don't need it in here. And I've got plenty in the property in the back. And I even wanted to have this pioneering species come in and just kind of help me develop this bed. So again, I put down a foot thick of mulch. It has not completely decomposed. You can see it's not like the other videos. If I dig down in here, there is going to be basically partially decomposed or composted wood chips. So what I'm having to do here is when I plant into this bed, I'll be digging down till I get to where the soil is. Now this has settled a lot, so it's not going to be a foot thick anymore. But I mean, it did kill all the grass. There's no grass here. But I will just make a bowl like that. I'll fill that up with compost, and I'll plant either seeds or plants right into that. It's not like the other beds. This one is a bed in transition. It's in its transition year. It's not like the other beds that I have over there. So I have a Hugelkultur 1 and a Hugelkultur 2. They look very different, but they're basically the same. And Hugelkultur is basically a German term that just means a raised bed. It's just a raised bed. It just doesn't have any kind of, it doesn't have wood on the sides. So it's just a mound. So it's not really a raised bed, it's a mound. Woo, it's windy. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell if you want to see when a new video goes up, and hit that like button. Talk to you guys later. Be well, stay safe out there. Bye for now. It doesn't have any kind of oops, I think I had my hand over the microphone. Right behind me right here is the one that I call, make sure I'm not standing any fire ants. You put wood in. Oh God, just stop that.